Hey, everybody. Usually, when I read a story about some sort of intimate encounter where something funny has happened or some sort of accident happens, I usually say there needs to be better communication. Well, I said that as part of my reaction to a story a couple videos back about a woman who tried to come on to her babysitter to thank him, and this kid was 16. Some people pointed out that that was assault of a minor, and I agree. I apologize for that. I'm sorry if it took you out of the enjoyment of the video. These are supposed to be enjoyment. I don't condone the assault of a minor in any way, and I need to be better in my reactions to these and think a little bit more about what I say. And I'm really sorry. I will do better. And speaking of, that would probably be the kind of incident that would get me dragged in front of human resources. And that's part of what the video is today. What's the worst HR is not your friend story you've witnessed or experienced? Story 1. I worked in a bakery at a Fred Meyer's for about 6 months when I was freshly 19. There was this 45-year-old guy in meat/seafood who was super creepy, and all of the women in my department, and even one woman who was previously in my department but was moved to another to get away from him, warned me about this man from day one. Somehow, anytime I was on my break, he would be on his break too, and he'd follow me into the break room and try to flirt with me the entire time. Not only did he follow me on my breaks and lunches, but if I had to walk to another part of the store to get anything, he would run to catch up to me and walk with me. He followed me to my car a few times after I got off shift, and the scariest time was when I was closing by myself, and he came into the back of the bakery and kept following me around the long table, trying to grab me while telling me how much he liked me and how badly he wanted to be with me. I told him no and to leave me alone constantly, while managers just shrugged and said, "That's just how he is." My boyfriend threatened him when he got off work one time. Heck, even my father came in and threatened him because no one was doing anything. The final straw for me was one night when I was closing alone again. He came into the back area and followed me into the freezer and tried to kiss me, and he grabbed my butt. I pushed him and freaking ran to the closing manager, who also functioned as HR. He said he'd watched the store footage and talk to me the next day. Next day comes, and he pulls me into his office and says that he saw the video and saw this man stalking me inside and outside of work, and that he talked to him about his behavior, to which the man responded that it was just a misunderstanding. I replied that this had been going on for months and I wasn't going to take it anymore, and he had the freaking nerve to tell me that he just does this to all the new girls. As soon as another girl gets hired, he'll leave me alone. I told him he was a mongrel and quit on the spot. Turns out the creep was the brother of the store's owner, who had been into jail in the past for assault and intimate violation, but was now cleaning his life up. Too long didn't read. 45-year-old man stalked 19-year-old me for 6 months trying to be with me. Told managers on many occasions they didn't listen. Guy finally assaults me. Manager talks with him. He says it's a misunderstanding. Manager says he just does this to all the new girls, and when a new girl gets hired, he'll chase her and not me. Turns out, Guy is a registered S offender for intimate violation and intimate assault, but he's the little brother of the store's owner, so he gets a pass. This would be a good one for corporate 1-800 number. And another case in point. Again, not cool. I don't know if this was a corporate. Well, yeah, it was. It says at the top. Do any of these other girls have fathers or brothers that would kind of step up to the managers on this? How many women were working here? It sounds like a lot of these women didn't have a choice, and if they had to get some money, this was a job to do it. And how did all these girls keep getting hired? They covered this guy up so much. It's awful that this had to happen. I wonder if there's any update, if anything actually happened. later on. Story 2. Coworker accidentally backed his company truck into my personal car while it was parked. He alerted me and our local manager immediately. We took photos, filled out the incident report, yada, yada, yada. Everyone in our office was in agreement about what happened, that it was an honest accident and the company's insurance should cover the cost of fixing my car. Then the HR director got involved. First, he tried to get me to assume liability since it was my personal vehicle that caused the accident. My car was parked in the parking lot, and I was inside at my desk when it happened. When I pointed this out, he backed down and said he would file the claim. Next, I got a call from a hostile insurance adjuster from my company's insurance demanding that I provide my insurance information or they would be pursuing legal action. It turns out the HR director had filed a claim saying that I had run into the parked work truck with my car and tried to flee the scene, but was witnessed by a coworker who reported me. I informed the adjuster what had actually happened and emailed her the photos and signed incident reports and witness statements that we had filled out, and she changed her tune pretty quickly and said she would get back to me. The next day, I get a settlement agreement from HR asking me to accept $1,100 for repairs and to sign a form releasing the company from any further responsibility. I had only just dropped my car off at the body shop and hadn't even gotten the estimate back yet. I declined and was told that I either had to accept the offer or be out of luck. At that point, I reached out to my own insurance and told them what had happened. As I went through the sequence of events, I could hear my agent getting almost giddy about all the blatantly illegal tactics HR had tried on me. In the end, they processed my claim and pursued my own company's insurance through subrogation. He also mentioned that they would probably be seeking additional damages due to falsification of statements in the initial claim. Don't frick with USAA. In the end, the damage ended up costing over $4,000 to fix, but I didn't have to pay a cent, not even my deductible. I don't know if the HR director experienced any consequences, but there was a comment in our finances VP's year-end report about needing to reduce extraneous costs due to reporting delays and inaccuracies in liability claims. I freaking love USAA. I will never have insurance through anyone else ever again. Also, they have nice hold music. This is for anyone. Always have documentation and never accept a settlement until you know the estimates. I drove rideshare for a while and for a couple of years. I am amazed that I got through it unscathed and I didn't even have a dash cam. I was very lucky. Document everything, get witnesses, get everything, and also check with your insurance company because not even your company is going to cover for you if they can get away with paying less, at least this company. Story 3. One of our departments shut down at noon thanks to an HVAC issue. Building management needed to move cubicles and pull out a chunk of drop ceiling. So the manager took them all out to the bar for a team-building exercise. Everyone in the department arrived the next morning to a final notice in lieu of termination on their desk that cited drinking on the job and time theft. The manager had an extra special third for improper use of a company credit card. None of what they'd done was against company policy, so the manager's boss, a vice president, called HR and told them to back whatever newbie had written them the heck off. HR instead forwarded over a brand new policy manual and told the VP to make sure all the write-ups were signed and returned by the end of day. VP goes up the chain to his boss, the CEO. The CEO hadn't even seen it, let alone authorized it. HR doesn't want to back down, even when the CEO calls them. Sure, he hadn't authorized it, but he had asked them to consider revamping it back in March. This was the glorious revamp. They'd gone back to square one and completely rewritten it. It's full of best practices, industry standard rules, and easy to understand language. Oh, and they've been enforcing it since May. So it would probably be best for him to just sign off on it, and any concerns he found could be incorporated into a future revision. Yeah, no. The CEO didn't make it past the first page before finding a contract law violation. Page 3 had a federal labor law violation. Page 4 would make the NLRB angry, and the section on PTO would get them sued 6 ways to Sunday. The head of HR was asked to resign. When she refused, she was fired. That head of HR had a dangerously large ego. How did this HR think that he was going to make the CEO back down? It's the CEO. It's the head honcho, the big cheese. Numero uno. Why did HR think they would get away with this? And especially when the CEO seemed to know labor laws better than HR when he found all these violations. It's amazing. I'm glad no one ended up getting fired because of that. Jeez. Story 4. I asked my boss for a desk phone with a speakerphone function because sometimes I needed at work to conference people on the phone with people in my office. We had these old yellow phones, so he told me to make a request to him and CC our office manager, and he'd send it to the HR department of our region via email. So I put forth a nice email outlining what I'm requesting and why I need it for HR's request. My office manager replies all and asks HR, per Lazarus 870 request, should I order the phone through the same channels I've used before, or is there a new policy? HR responded livid. She demanded to know why I needed this phone. It was in the email. And then accused my office manager of going behind HR's back in ordering phones before without approval. My office manager told my boss, who called HR, and chewed her out, and I could hear yelling. My boss came out of his office and yelled at me, "See what you've caused?" He was fired up, but I know he didn't mean anything malicious by it. I just laughed. HR had to apologize to office manager for accusations. Turns out, after everybody yelled their freaking lungs out for an hour, the speakerphone I needed was literally free, and we had boxes of them in storage. I had it for a month before HR rolled out new fancy phones that were actually expensive and convoluted, requiring training to set up and use. At the company picnic, we had to wear freaking name tags, and I had never met HR lady face to face, and she came up and said, "Oh, we haven't met. What's your name?" And I was trying to hide my name tag, but she read it and didn't seem happy to see me. Story 5. Pick one. The HR director who put not 1, not 2, but 3 people on the job of auditing everyone's FMLA applications. We were to look up the medical terms, print out layperson-friendly summaries of them, add any notes of our own that might be helpful if we had prior healthcare experience, all so she could make sure no one was fraudulently taking medical leave. For anyone who may not be aware, the Family and Medical Leave Act in the U.S. gives employees the right to take up to 12 weeks of leave from their job, unpaid. And while it isn't a HIPAA violation by the letter of the law, it certainly is in spirit. None of this information was any of this shrew's business, and none of the employees had any idea she was doing it. The HR guy who helped tabulate the test results for the customer service employees and admitted that even though the passing score was, let's say, 70%, he loved the company so much that he had taken it upon himself to only pass people scoring above 95% up the chain. Might sound reasonable until you factor in that these were personality tests designed to detect how subservient you were to others. The workers' comp lady who refused to train anyone on how to provide pay information to the feds in order to get the benefits flowing, and who had accrued enough PTO to be out 5 and 6 weeks at a stretch, leaving injured employees to twist in the wind. I only spent a couple of years in HR. It was a couple of years too many. I will sweep streets and clean sewers before I will ever work with such psychopathic runts again. Story 6. Every second Friday of the month, people in my office would get drinks after work. One time, it happened to fall on my birthday. Because they let me pick the bar, I figured I would just invite some friends there too to meet up with me after. Usually, these drinks lasted from like 4 to 5:30 with my coworkers. Well, one coworker, who was generally a bit odd, stayed and sort of stuck to me and my friends. I didn't really want her there, but she couldn't take a hint, and I was 3 cocktails in, so I just gave up and didn't say anything. One of my friends starts talking about intimacy, nothing particularly vulgar or kinky, or even about our personal lives. It was mainly just about the politics of intimacy and relationships. The following Tuesday, I got an email from HR about having inappropriate conversations of an intimate nature with coworkers. I tried to explain what happened, and even though I think the person believed me, and other workers corroborated my story, I was written up for misconduct. I obviously did not want that on my record, so I escalated it all the way up the company. And eventually, we had a 4-hour meeting with a regional HR person where my coworker just cried and caved. Then, afterward, she had a bunch of people in trouble for a toxic work environment because nobody wanted to be around her and she was never invited to any social events. It was the dumbest absolute thing I've ever experienced. What a cluster job. It sounds like this person is just trying to command from the bottom somehow. I think this person probably just doesn't think about what they are personally. They don't have any inner reflection. And they think they're just following by the rules. I guess the lesson was once it got to where this person was with their friends, they should have just moved to a different bar. Maybe this person would have taken the hint. Maybe that would have helped the case, even though it eventually ended up in their favor. That's another part of the experience. As some people say, your work friends are not your friends. Story 7. Office Survey. I put in some honest opinions of a member of my team. They were fair and honest criticisms of a system which was not working as designed. I had little contact with the system, but the whole thing seemed reasonable to me. I was, in effect, demoted for this. A position was created above me, and a colleague who was my equal was to be my manager. Position did not exist before. This happened the same week my husband expired, and the management felt like trash because of the timing. But still, on my return to work, I was basically called out for criticizing the same system in a whole company meeting, and it was explained how X system should and did work, and anyone who thought it didn't work was stupid. Cue to 2 years later. Person above me quits, partly because they're scared to tell company that anything's gone wrong because of how I was treated, and they have to promote me to that position because it now exists according to the rules, and I'm the only one who can do it. Again, in a whole company meeting, they admit X system isn't working, and we have a consultation to find out why. I laughed. I couldn't help it. I had to leave the room before it turned into hysteria. Story 8. I worked in a warehouse that regularly concealed the shipping of dangerous goods to save money. This went on for years. As time went on, I bubbled up through the ranks and was eventually made manager of the warehouse. I outright refused to ship anything anywhere until we started to claim our dangerous goods shipments properly. Their solution? The boss started to sign his name instead. This went on for a few weeks until HR found out. They obviously knew how much trouble the president could have gotten into. So the next time a shipment had to go out, they got the newest guy in the warehouse to start signing his name instead, claiming they were training him how to do paperwork. But the poor kid had no idea. So when the driver showed up to pick up his shipment, I told him that there were a bunch of dangerous substances concealed in the shipment. So he refused and left. I got told later that my actions were damaging to the company image, and I had to stop. I told HR exactly what was going on and how I would not be a part of it. Less than a week after that, I was removed from my position due to company restructuring and laid off. Some of the most crooked junk I've ever seen. My rough estimates ballpark the money they saved at about $250,000 a year. Scumbags. The whole family.
Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 9. Pulled into a meeting with 2 HR reps in the middle of my shift. Taken to this really nice boardroom, which was confusing because I was just a grunt, and this is literally floors above where I should ever be. They sat me down and said, basically, "What do you have to say for yourself?" Me, still confused, tells them I have no idea what they're talking about. Everyone is really quiet and serious, and I'm scared witless. And they say, "You know what you did. This is cause for termination, blah, blah." I'm literally thinking this is really excessive for being a few minutes late sometimes. I insist I don't know what's going on. One of them maybe realized something was wrong and flips open a file and says, "You're XX, right?" Turns out they got me mixed up with someone else who has the same name. On the elevator ride down by myself, I'm still sweating. Don't know what that other person did, but man, HR does not play. This happened at one place I worked at. They pulled the wrong sister into a meeting and started chewing her out for far too long before they realized they had the wrong person in there. I don't think apologies were ever made. Does it seem more ironic than Alanis Morissette that HR stands for human resources, but there's instances like this where they don't know one coworker from another? In fact, that whole term, human resources, actually, when you think about it, seems kind of impersonal. It's not human employees, or it's not human element or workers, it's human resources, like paper is a resource, or phones are a resource, or office space is a resource. Yuck. You know what I mean. Story 10. I went to HR to report that my team's manager was illegally shorting all of our paychecks. HR's response was to adopt a new company-wide policy addressing the paycheck issue and backpaying most people for a certain amount, and also to frame me for work avoidance. HR and IT disabled part of my login account to a tool we used, and then fired me a few months later after failing to fix the problem and allowing me to actually do my job. They tried to deny my unemployment claim afterward, told the unemployment rep that they had logs showing that I did something to break the tool I don't even have access to break in the first place. They also didn't think to disable my email access in a timely manner, so I was able to back up all my emails with IT documenting exactly what went down. Unemployment approved my claim and hit them with a major penalty to their insurance. I love it when justice is served. Story 11. Overall, I've been able to get along with HR departments, with one exception. I was working a help desk job for a company during college, and the head of HR called in for help. He was making an Excel spreadsheet and couldn't figure out how to make a formula do what he wanted. I offered to come take a look as we were in the same building, and he told me I couldn't because the spreadsheet was full of confidential information. So I asked then if he could describe what exactly he was trying to do without giving away any specific info, and he told me that what he was trying to do was confidential. So I clarified that he wanted me to tell him how to do something, but I couldn't see it, and he wouldn't even tell me what it was he was trying to do. At that point, he agreed that I wouldn't be able to assist him since he couldn't divulge anything. As soon as we hung up, he called my boss to complain that I was useless. That there is a top-tier Class A moron. You have my sympathy. Story 12. At my last real job before striking out on my own, I had an exit interview with the HR lady, who was actually just someone who was friends with the company president who was filling in because the actual HR lady with a degree in HR and everything quit. A lot of people at this place quit. It was a terrible place to work with out-of-touch management and delusions of grandeur limping along building websites for a business niche that was mostly old people who thought the internet was magic. During the exit interview, she asked why I was leaving. I told her I liked my coworkers a lot, but hated the company. She got this exacerbated look and got genuinely upset, and told me that she'd been getting that same line from everybody else who quit and had their exit interview recently. It boggled my mind that they could hear the same thing over and over again from so many people putting in their time until they could go on to something better and not stop to think that they should change something. One, I'm glad I never had to go through this whole exit interview process. Some people say don't say anything during the exit interview because it'll reflect on your future references, and other people say just go ahead and blurt it out, let people know what's wrong with the company. But also it's interesting that this issue got pointed out by someone who was outside of the company. Do you get this feeling that the regular HR person knows that the same thing's being said over and over, maybe even telling the upper management, but they don't do anything about it? I kind of think that's the case. Story 13. The HR payroll manager at a small hospital I worked at had a bad habit of not paying out the sign-on bonus that was paid out incrementally in 3 payments through the course of a year and sign-on bonuses for picking up extra shifts. After repeated requests to be belatedly compensated, I took it to corporate, who addressed my issue immediately. A couple weeks later, I was terminated on what amounted to a technicality where I forgot my badge one shift, and my relief was late to take over sitting with a patient, causing me to receive more points against me than if I had called out for that shift. When I was called in to receive my notification, the director of nursing was shocked, but ultimately not much she could do. Wage theft is the single largest type of theft in terms of sheer dollar value, year after year. Story 14. HR hired consultants to run morale-building employee input sessions, basically saying, "We're not from the company. You can tell us all the things you don't like about working here and would like to see changed, and we'll put it all in a report for management. Don't worry, everything is anonymous. We just need material for our report, and you guys get to have your say in improving things around here." Turns out, HR and the consultants recorded all the sessions and played the highlights for management. People were disciplined for criticizing the company on their immediate supervisors, and any shred of faith or trust in management that the employees may have had was instantly incinerated. Managers now complain that they don't know what's going on in their teams because nobody tells them anything. I wonder why. Story 15. During an exit interview with my last job, HR asked me where I was going to next. HR: "So what's the name of the company you're moving to next?" Me: "I'm not really comfortable disclosing that." HR: "Are you sure? It would really help us out." Me: "I'd rather not say." HR: "It's company policy that you need to tell us." Me: "I said no, and if you continue further, you'll be hearing from my lawyer." HR: "Shocked Pikachu face." Told my old boss this after I left, and he was absolutely shocked. HR have no right to know anything about the next place you're moving to. It's literally none of their business. But they tried to press it out of me anyway, more than likely to call them up and talk trash about me. I've been hearing some companies going beyond this. I don't know if it's true. I've seen some screenshots, but apparently after firing someone, they make them sign an agreement, some sort of document that absolves the company from some sort of blame, and if they don't sign it, they withheld their last paycheck. It's really devious, and it's really preying on people who need the money and who probably have no choice but to sign it if they want to get their last paycheck that they were depending on. Very scummy. Story 16. My ex's mom was in HR. She was pretty dang awful about it and loved nothing more than coming home and telling us all the drama and gossip. Oh my Lord, girl! And that's how I found out my married physician at the time was smashing the married doctor in the next office over. That woman could not keep her dang mouth shut. Hilarious for me at the time, but holy hell, looking back. I reported my boss to HR for, let's see if the algorithm tags this, sexist treatment. HR said they'd talk to me again before going to him. He fired me 2 days later, HR at his side. He was friends with all the higher-ups, so I wasn't exactly surprised. They escorted me out before I could collect what I needed from my computer for proof. Yeah, I was young and dumb, and I learned. Have backups. Story 17. I worked at a smallish company that grew big enough to hire an HR person. Her office was down from mine, so in the mornings I'd swing by and say hi. That turned into grabbing a cup of coffee she had just made, then into having a pastry and talking about life. I found that if I mentioned someone's name in passing, A few minutes later, she would spill the beans about that person's life. What work issues they had, health issues, family issues, etc. I learned really quick any issues I had not to take them to her. She made it like 6 months before she got fired. Holy hit snacks, she's literally, figuratively Pam from Archer. Story 18. Upon giving 2 weeks' notice, I get this stupid rant about millennial snowflakes, how we can't take the stress of a real job, and how we think we're so important and unique, but in reality, the only thing that would happen is that they would find another engineer to fill in for me, and things would be like I never existed. After the initial shock, I replied with a, "You're absolutely correct. Me staying or not is meaningless. Consider my resignation immediate from this moment. Please give me the paperwork to sign." If I had $1 for every boomer that called me a millennial snowflake, I'd be able to buy a house in the market they destroyed. Story 19. A skilled nursing facility I worked at got bought out by another company. New management comes in and starts cracking the whip and basically doing everything they can to decrease morale. What happens is predictable. People that have been employed in the building for 20 years start quitting left and right. Patient ratios start going up while more work is required. They lose so much staff, they resort to using a medical staffing agency, and the place has about half the staff on payroll to actually function independently. That management team is all left, but the effects are still withstanding. Typical for that industry. Story 20. After 4 years on the job, I was given a first and final warning for asking why the heck HR was behind a locked door and now dominated over half the first floor, filled with new furniture that was unused after 6 months. Meanwhile, my chair was taken by another employee, and I was told to use the chair without padding. An executive from another department heard my complaint, stole one of the unused chairs from the HR expansion and gave it to me, explaining that if I did it, I'd be fired. She did it, daring them to fire her. That's a cool executive. Story 21. At my job, we used to hire a few special needs individuals who would do some cleaning and light-duty things. One day, one of them did something wrong. It was very minor, but I can't remember the specifics. And the manager said out loud right next to this guy, "Why do we keep hiring these—" oh, there's an R word I'm not going to say. No. And referred to his job coach as his handler. Ooh. I know I can say that word, but I still feel creepy saying it. One of the girls that saw it happen was rightfully ticked off and reported it to HR. The next day, she was put on unpaid leave for creating a hostile work environment. Same manager is still here. She is not. Story 22. HR was the boss's sister, and the boss was a narcissist. The sister, HR, had very little actual life experience because they both came from a big pharma family and never really had a sense of what working a real job was like. Boss could do no wrong in his sister's eyes, so complaining about anything just got you gaslit. Glad I'm not there anymore. This is what I imagine hell to be like. Story 23. Our HR always abuses the company budget. They have the nicest ergonomic keyboards, a fancy coffee machine in their office, and are the first to receive gifts from vendors. One time, they did the food tasting for the company year-end party that they were organizing. Catering company allowed 2 people for food tasting and will charge $100 for additional people. The entire HR department went in that afternoon and charged the company for the tasting fee, of course. Story 24. I used the term pee off, as in get lost, in an unofficial online forum. Someone alerted a corporate recruiter who managed to dig through my previous posts, connect dots, narrow down who I was, and have the head of HR terminate my job offer without discussion. Never knew pee was considered profanity. Probably better off you don't work somewhere that idiotic. Story 25. HR ordered me to downgrade my 3 excellent employee reviews to satisfactory because management didn't recognize their names. I got written up for telling my employees this. HR denied that they told me anything, even though I had the emails from them documenting it. Totally worth it. My employees were excellent and got the raises they deserved. Story 26. This post has reminded me that people quit bad bosses, not bad jobs. Humans can tolerate very bad situations if they feel appreciated. Ironically, my old manager, everyone hated that drove the store into the ground, posted this on her LinkedIn. Zero self-introspection. Story 27. Not the type of answer you were looking for, but when the stupid freaking self-absorbed airhead freaking turd HR person replied to spam email allegedly from the boss and sent all the info for all 400 employees. Everything on your job application. Sent to scammers. Thank you, Kathy, you stupid runt. God dang it, Kathy. Story 28. I reported harassment to HR at a large international company when I was 21. They notified my harasser, an old VP, before I even made it back to my desk. I was fired a few days later, despite an excellent performance review the week before he propositioned me. Sue, 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 sue. Story 29. Not HR, but heed my warning. Don't type anything in your work computer that you wouldn't say directly to your company's HR person's face. I've seen people have cases built against them for poor work and ultimately fired for the stuff they say over Skype.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.